Okay, thank you. Welcome to today's session, and today we're going to be plotting or printing with AutoCAD. Now, as you can see on my screen, I have this model or this geometry that I would like to plot. Now, when we say plotting or when we say printing, they're actually talking about the same thing. Talking about how you present your output. So in this case, there are several ways to plot. You can decide to plot from this screen directly just by typing Ctrl+P. Here's a shortcut for prints. Yes, from this screen directly, just by typing Ctrl+P, the shortcut for prints. And then it brings up this dialog menu where you have to do some setups, and then, of course, you click OK to print or preview after you've done your setup. But that's not what we're going to be doing now. There are other ways. You can decide to come here and tap this printer icon for the plots. So doing this will still bring up these same options for you to do your settings. And I'll have to close it. We have another way. You go down here to the application menu, go down to print, and then it brings up this same menu for you to continue. So you see there are several ways to plot. But before plotting, there are things you need to set up. There are things you need to set up before plotting. And those things are very crucial. You need to set up some things in order for you to plot correctly. So, you know, while making your geometry, you made use of some special properties, like you have your drawing scale, you have other things like your layers, the layers you used. When you are trying to print or plot your drawing, you actually pay attention to these things, and you need to set your plotting manager or your printing manager to actually acknowledge that, okay, you had some settings on. Now, the first way to print, you can just go to your output and then select this page setup manager. Page setup manager will help you set up your printing page. So we're going to click on it to bring up this. Now, if you notice, we have a model there already. This model here is talking about what's already on the model, since it's the model space. It's talking about what's already on the model or in the model. So you can decide to modify this one, but that's not what I want to do today. I want to create a new page setup. Now you have to give it a name. So we'll call it CAD setup. So that's what we have to call this one, CAD setup. Now, after naming it, you can then say OK to bring up the dialog menu. Now, right here, this is where you have to do some of your settings. First of all, you need to choose a printer here. You need to choose a printer. But in our case, since we don't have a live printer, we are going to be selecting PDF. So there are so many printers you can choose from right here. But in this case, we're just going to use AutoCAD PDF, General Documentation, right here. Or you can use any of these that has the PDF option, AutoCAD PDF option. So you can choose any of them. You can choose AutoCAD PDF, high quality, AutoCAD PDF, smallest file, and all. But in my case, I'm going to be using this. You can also publish to JPEG if you wish. But I'm just going to be using AutoCAD PDF, General Documentation. I'll select that. Now, if you want to adjust the properties of the printer, you can just go here and set that up, but that's not what I'm going to be doing today. The next place you want to pay attention to is the paper size. Now, for you to plot or for you to print, there must be a paper size. If you're going to be using A3 paper, A4 paper, you're going to be using A2, A1, B5, and the rest. So this is where you actually select your paper size. In this case, we have ISO A4, and we have other sizes like so, according to what you want to achieve. Now, if you notice, let me close this and open it again. If you notice, this is ISO A4, and we have 210 by 2 A4 also, and it's 297. That's the difference between both of them. One of them here is a portrait, while the other is in landscape mode. So this 297 by 210 is in landscape mode, because we know that in AutoCAD, you pay attention to the x-axis first before the y-axis. So if the x-axis from this paper size is bigger or larger than the y-axis, you know that that will be a portrait mode. But if the x-axis is smaller than the y-axis, you know, okay, this, if the x-axis is larger than the y-axis, you know that that is in landscape. And if the y-axis is larger than the x-axis, you know that this is portrait. Do you get that? If you understand this, please use the chat box, type understood. Okay, yeah, you understand that. So I'm going to be using the landscape mode in this case. So I am just going to be using this 297 by 210. And of course, you see it here, it's showing that this is a landscape plot. So now we're going to continue from there. Now, the next thing you want to pay attention to is your plot area. Yes, your plot area. As you can see, it's been set to display by default. If I preview this, you will see everything that is on display. Yeah, everything. So let's preview it. Now you see, it's showing you the whole file that is on this display, like so, and how it will be represented on paper. Now imagine this is the A4 paper you want to print or plot this geometry, and this is how it will be displayed. This is just a this is just an overview of what will be seen after you've plotted or printed your document. So that is it. Now, if you're not okay with this, you can just click this sign to go back to that dialog menu, and it will take you back to this dialog menu. You know you're not okay with it, you want to do other settings. And now you have to select this and check the next option to extents. Now extents will show you all the documents, everything that is in this model space. So now let's go to extents and preview. Now you see, extent is showing you everything that is on this model space. And as if you may have noticed, look here, you notice that some part of it are going off because the paper size cannot accommodate, all that is here. So now we'll have to go back to adjust. Let's change it to, okay, we'll talk about that, don't worry. In this case, let's just go to the next option, which is limits. Of course, I talked about units and limits during our first week, and we talked about the importance of units and limits. Now, if you're using limits here to plot, it means that the limit you set, you know, if you remember, you have to set your lower left corner and your upper right corner. So if you set it to limits, it means that it will only plot that limit that was set. That's what it will only plot in this case. If you set it to limit, it will only plot the limit that was set. So I don't advise people to do this, because sometimes while making your drawings, you may actually go beyond your limits. While creating your drawings, you may go beyond the limits. So I don't advise people to actually use this. The next one is window. So if I select window, okay, let me select limits and make a preview. You see, none of the drawing is within my limits. None of the drawing is within my limits. So there's nothing shown here. So I'll just have to close this to go back. And then the next one is the window option. Now, this window option lets you choose a drawing window. So you have to draw like a selection window, to select the items you want to be displayed in the plot area or in the plot sheet. So if I click here and go over here and click again to select, you see a second option here. Now with this second option, I can adjust whatever I've been doing. So with this second option, if I click here again, you see it will take me back to this same space. Let's say I don't like the way it was, and I want to adjust it to be a little bit closer, like so. So with this second button here, you can actually adjust your window, like the plot window. So now that's it for plot area. You have to select which type of plot area you would like to use. And then once you're done with that, you go next to plot offset. This plot offset is talking about the distance between your actual drawing and the paper size or the paper width and length, yeah? So if you know how you want to set them, let's say you want it to be like so, minus 13.5 as I just did with this window, you can just set the offset. But if you don't understand how to set your offset, you may just want to center the plot. If you center the plot, it doesn't matter how this offset may look, it will just centralize your drawing like so. So as you can see here, it's been centralized. But if I turn this off, you see everything. So if I come here and say I want my X offset to be 50, I want my Y offset to be 50. Like so. You see, and let me preview it. You see the way it's been shown, because I don't even know where the paper is in the first place. So I'm just going to close this and then go for the center the plot option. If I tick this, it will centralize my plots like so. So if I preview it now, you'll see it's at the center of the paper, as you can see like so. So this is a nice one. You can actually use this. So I'm going to close this to continue the setup. So I haven't done all this setup. You have to go over to this other side to select some other things or to set some other things. Now, if you notice here, you see plot to scale. This plot scale, rather, plot scale. The plot scale, if you remember, we were talking about annotative and non-annotative. We talked about scaling your drawings while we were talking about annotative and non-annotative dimensioning. Now, if you actually drew to scale, you can come here and uncheck this button or this box, uncheck this box, and then adjust it to your scale. Let's say you want it to be 1:1. You come here and select 1:1. Of course, if you select 1:1, that means you will be printing 1:1. It means that after printing, if someone takes a measuring tape or a meter rule to measure your drawing, it will actually be 1 unit for 1 unit. That means 1 unit will be equal to 1 unit. If you use centimeters or millimeters and you're doing 1:1, in this case, it's millimeters, right? Millimeters are not inches. And you do 1:1, it means that if after you've done your drawing or your plotting, someone can take a meter rule and measure that particular drawing, and each unit will be equals to 1 millimeter in real time. Do you understand this? If you understand this, please use the chat box, type understood. If you understand this, please use the chat box, type understood. Okay, yes, we can continue. So if you know your drawing scale, in this case, I did, John Paul, please. If you know your drawing scale, you may want to actually adjust it. Mine was 8:1. So as you can see, like so, if I preview this, you should see it clearly. Yes. So, and that was my drawing scale. I'm just going to close this, but I'm not going to use the drawing scale in this case. I'm just going to fit to paper. I'm going to fit to paper. What this will do is that it will fit your drawing to the paper. And of course, if you have your title block, what you're going to indicate in your title block is not to scale, as in NTS. Yeah, that means your drawing is not to scale because the scale is not indicated and you do not use the drawing scale in printing or plotting. So now that is it. After you've done this, now this plot style, you would want to choose some plot styles. You come here. This arcad.ctb will actually plot your drawing with all colors, full colors. What you want to pay attention to is grayscale and monochrome. Because mostly, while plotting, unless requested by the client, while plotting, you would want to plot in grayscale or black and white. So these are the two things you want to pay attention to, either grayscale or monochrome in this case. So you choose any of them. I'm going to go with grayscale. Assign this plot style to all table layouts. Yes, I want it to be like so. And then display plot style. I don't want this. I'm not going to check this box. If you're working with 3D, you can decide to use this shaded viewport options, and then you set any of them, hidden, realistic, shaded, and all that. When we get to 3D, while we'll be talking a little, about 3D, I'm going to talk about this also. So you can decide any of these options, but we're not doing any 3D now. So this is out of it for now. Now let's go over to plot options. You can decide, okay, I want it to plot the line weights. If you noticed, we have some line thickness here. Some lines are thick, like, in fact, all of them are thick. Now, if I go back and uncheck the line weight option, you see, the lines become thin, as you may have seen on screen. So now, if we have transparency, I can decide to plot the transparency like so. Yes, I can decide to plot the transparency. This means that if I check this box, if I applied any transparency to any of those geometry, it will appear while after I have plotted my drawing. So now I'm just going to check this line width because I wanted to plot the line width. And then the next one is transparency. I don't want transparency. Okay, and that is it. Plot styles, of course, you know what styles are if you did set up your styles. Now, the next one we're talking about is drawing orientation. This one works with this, your paper size. This drawing orientation works with your paper size. Let's say you want it to be portrait. Of course, if you may have seen, it's portrait all along. It's standing tall. If you want it to be portrait, like it's been selected here, you see it portrait all along. Now we want to make it landscape. So I'm going to select landscape option, and you see how it fits in. So if I preview, you see the landscape option like so. So I'm going to close it because that's self-explanatory. And the next one is upside down. It means that if you want to plot your drawings upside down, if you check this box and you preview it, you see what it's doing. It's plotting upside down. No, this is an error. Let's go back. This will be done after your printing, actually. This will be done after your printing. So if you do this, it means that your text or geometry will be upside down as you have seen here, and it will be done after your printing. So I'm going to uncheck it because I don't want it to be upside down. And if I feel okay by my setup, I just click OK. And once I click OK, I have to come here and close or set current, then close this. Now I've done my page setup. I've set up my drawing page. So now the next thing is to print. After setting up your page, you would want to print. And of course, I've shown you different ways of printing. You can click here to print. You can go over here to print. You can Control P with your keyboard as the shortcut to print, or you can just type print in the command line and you will print. And the other way to print is to go over to your layout tab. You know, we have the model space and the paper space. You go over to the paper space. We have this already. It's been set to this. Now you can decide to print from this space. Since you have it set up, this is where you can actually print. One of the ways you can actually print, not where you can actually, it's not compulsory that you print from your paper space. You can print from your model space just by using keyboard shortcut Control P, and it takes you to this place. Then you come here. We have already the CAD page set up. already. If you preview this, you will see everything there as it's been set up. Then you can just print. I can say, okay, I want to print, and I click okay. Because everything is being set, I just click okay. And decide where I want to save it, because it's a PDF. I have to decide where I want to save it in this case. And just, let's say I keep it document, any of these places. And if I say, okay, save. And there we go. Our plot is out. So if I go over to the file, documents, okay, file is up already. So now let me share my file screen, new share this. And here we have it. If you can see this, if you can see the final plot, please use the chat box, type in. If you understood the process, you can also type /understood. Hello, are you with me? Okay. Alfred John saw it and he understood it. Okay, Chizzy understood and he saw it. Who else saw this? Omo, are you here? Oh, you only saw it, John Paul. You did not understand. Wow. Omo, you should be on this call. Are you here? Why would you lose focus? Why would you lose focus? Okay. Okay. Now, let me see. Let me go over it again. Not really over, but let's talk about some things now. I'm going to share my AutoCAD screen. And that is it. Share. Okay. Can you see my AutoCAD screen? You can see my AutoCAD screen, please. Okay, you can see my AutoCAD screen. So let's continue. Now I talked about the page setup. Talked about the page setup and how do you access the page setup. I talked about several ways to go over your page setup and that. And the simplest way is to go to your output and then page setup manager. There's another way also. We'll talk about that in a while, in a moment. Now for this, you can decide to create a new page setup like I just did here. Then after you create a new page setup, let's say new. This is the new page setup and say, okay. Once you click OK, it gives you this dialog menu. And it's quite easy. First of all, you need to select how you want it to be plotted. If you want to print to any of, if you want to plot to any of your printer available, you can click on this. For my case, I just want a virtual copy. So I'm going to be using AutoCAD PDF. Yes, so I select AutoCAD PDF. And now the options, I come here to set up how I want, the paper size I want to use. For this time, I'm going to be using A3 landscape. And I talked about the difference between a portrait and a landscape. We know AutoCAD pays attention to the x-axis before the y-axis. So if the x-axis is larger than the y-axis, you know that is landscape mode. If the x-axis is smaller than the y-axis, you know that is portrait. So I'm going to be using landscape here. And that is A3 paper. A3 420 by 297. That is landscape in millimeters. So now there are different ways to plot. You can decide to plot your display. This will plot everything that is being displayed currently on the screen. That means the drawing there. Let's preview this. This is what it will be plotting, because this is what the A3 size paper will cover. So this is how you see it on screen, the display. Yeah. So I'm going to close this to go to the next option, which talks about extent. Extent will plot to the extent of your drawing area. Everything that is on your drawing area, it will plot to that. So now I'm going to preview this to show you an example. Like you can see like so. It's plotting to extent. And until you zoom in, you can't see these figures here. That's because none of them are annotative. All of them are non-annotative. So now I'm going to close this. Now, the next one, or the next option there is limits. We talked about limits in our first week, yes. And we talked about how important it is. So if you had set your limit, if I had done my limit set, if my limit was set up before now, and I select this limit option, and I actually followed the limits to, or the principles of limits to creating my drawings, and I click preview, or if I want to print from limits, you will actually see the drawing, but unfortunately I did not. So there's nothing within that limit because I did not follow my limit setup. And I'm going to close this. And the final one there should be window rather. This window gives you option to actually select a drawing window, and every object that is being covered within that selection window will be plotted. In this case, I'm going to do it like so. So now any object that is being covered by this selection window right now will be plotted. And if I preview it, you will see it so. So you see it like so, because I selected this object, it's showing this way. So now this is what I want to plot. I close. So the window is being selected. I like the window option and it's being selected. Now I go over to the next one, which is plot offset. If you know your plot offset, or the offset between the X and Y axis of your plot, you see between here and between this part and this part, that's the X and Y axis. So if you see the space between this part and this part should be 40.82 as it is right, so like this. Yes. And the space between here and here should be 0, as you have seen here. So I'll just uncheck this. If I want to adjust it, I can say, okay, I need this to be 5. And I preview it. Once I preview it, you see the option there. So you know that the Y distance should be 5 and the X distance should be 40 points, whatever it was. Now, the next thing you want to pay attention to is this center the plot. And it's actually the, should I say, best choice, because it will centralize your plot. Now, if I select center the plot, it means that everything that I selected within my selection window is being centralized on the paper. So if I preview it, you see it like so. It's being centralized. So I'm going to close this to continue the setup. And right here, this is where you select how you want it to be displayed. If you want it to be displayed with colors, or you want it to be displayed in black and white, grayscale, monochrome, and all that. If you select ACAD.CTB, it means that you want it to show full color. If you select none, it means that it will show full color. But if you want it to be grayscale or black and white, you can choose either grayscale or monochrome. Either grayscale or monochrome in this case. So I'm just going to go with grayscale. And it's asking me if I want to assign it to all layout. I said I will just type select yes. Now the next one is shaded viewport. If you're working on a 3D model, this one will come in handy. It tells you how you want it to be displayed. You want it to be displayed conceptual or hidden or realistic. All these shades will be talked about when we get to AutoCAD 3D. Yes, we'll talk about all this when we get to 3D. So I'm just going to close this for now because we're not covering it for now. Now the next one is plot options. If you want to plot object line weights, you select it like so. If you may have noticed, the object has thickness. As you can see, the line has thickness, even the dimension line, they all have their thickness. But I don't want it to be that way. I don't want it to be that way in this case. I want the thickness to be off. So I'm just, sorry, the line weight to be off. I'll just come here and uncheck this box. So if I preview it now, you see that there's no more line weight. The line is thin. There's no line weight there. So I'm going to close this and go back to my settings and plot styles, of course. If you had applied transparency to your drawing and you want that to show, you can just check this box for transparency option, but I don't want it. I only want the line weight, so I'm going to check that. Now, pay attention to this place, right here. If I select portrait, it means that my drawing will be portrait. If I preview this, you see, it's portrait right now. So I don't want portrait, I want it to be landscape. So I'm going to close this and change my drawing orientation to landscape. In this case, if I want the object to be upside down after printing, I'm going to select this. As you can see right here, it's upside down. But I don't want that, so I'm just going to uncheck that. And I'll say OK. Once I say OK, you see our new page setup, like so. You can set current, and then you close this. Now let's get over to printing this. If you want to print, you can click on plots right from this output. You can click on plots right from this output. Or you go home. You can click this to plot it. You can also do Control P. All of the options take you to one direction. So I'm just going to do Control P, and it will take me to something that looks like what we did earlier. So if I'm okay with the setup, of course, I will just have to select any of the page setup I had set up before now. So I'm going to use this one that I did recently. And I'll just leave all others because they are all these things have been covered before now. So if I do preview, you see the options there. And then if I'm okay with this, I just go ahead and print. If I click this, print, it takes me to, okay, let me do it so you see. It's to do this, and then take me to where I want to save the object. So I'll have to rename the object, maybe isoplots, and then save. Once I click on save, of course, we know it's in documents. Once I click on save, it automatically opens the document. Yes, so I'm going to share my screen to the new document right now and share. So this is how it will be displayed after you print. So if you understood this, please use the chat box, type understood. If you understood this, please use the chat box, type understood. Okay. Yes. She's understood it. Any other person? Any other person? Okay. Okay. All right. I haven't done that. There are other ways to actually plot or print. Now you can go to your layout tab. This printing was done with the model space. Now we can go to our paper space, like so, and then we can print. Now, let me go over this. In this paper space, you can see a white paper in the background, and then you see this line. Of course, that's part of the paper. Then you have something here, this line that has a weight. So now I'm going to select that one. I'm going to select this. This is the viewport, and you can adjust it as you want. I can click here and adjust this node to this place, or adjust it down here and adjust this other part down here like so. So you see the viewport is adjustable. You can adjust it and adjust it like so. Okay, so that is it for the viewport. Now, the viewport, if you double click on this viewport, it takes you to the model space. And here you can edit each of these things. So you don't want that. Click on this to go back to my paper space, and I will see this like so. So after you've adjusted, let's say your viewport, you've adjusted your viewport. After you've adjusted the viewport, is it locked? Yes, it is. So for you to adjust it, you need to unlock it. See this here. I locked it at 8:1 because that's the scale I want to print. So now I am just going to unlock it so I can actually edit it. So if you notice, if I zoom in and out, the scale changes. The scale factor here changes. Yes. That is because if you zoom in and out, your printing scale will change. So now we'll go back to 8:1 or 10:1 in this case and leave it like so. And then be careful not to zoom in and out again. All you have to do is pan to adjust your drawing. Just pan it and keep the way you want. And of course, it's 10:1, and then you can lock it. Once you lock it in place, you can then plot. From here, you can right click here and then decide to plot. If you want to set your page manager, you can do that with this. Of course, you know we just did that now, but you still need to do it again. You come here and set your page manager for your layout. But that's not what we want. Now it's the same process, the same thing we did. So I'm going to close this. I'll come here and click on plots. And it brings this option. You come here, you select your previous plots. If you have it, there's no previous plot, so you need to go over again. Let's go back now to set up our page because this one does not recognize what we did earlier. So now you have to go here, right click here and go to the page setup and do all of those setup again. I just noticed it did not recognize that one. So now you do your setup, select this, the name, of course, nomenclature, and you do your printer, your paper size. This time I'm going to be using A4, but landscape. Layout, yes, I want to plot the layout. Now you see the layout option here. The layout option was not available while we were doing the page setup for the model space. Did you get this I just said now? This layout option, it was not there for the model space, but the layout option is here for this paper space. Okay, Chizzy understands that part. So now we have the layout option and every other option we did before now. So I'm going to use the layout option. That means it to plot this layout as it is. Now, of course, see the scale factor, 1:1. If you want to use this, so now I'm going to use 10:1. Let me preview it. Ooh, that's an error. I'm going to use 1:1. It means it will plot the layout 1:1. I had already set my layout to 10:1. So if I come here, I need to set 1:1 because I want it to plot exactly what's in the layout preview. Now we have it like so, and I have to adjust it down so it fits in this paper. Okay. Go over to Windows. I select this part. I drop it here. Center the plots. Preview. Yes, we have it correctly. Close. Now, all other things the same. You just have to, according to your preference, set them up. And then you can also do fit to paper if you want to. And then OK to set up your page manager. and set current and close. So now if I print this, if I come here and do plots, because you see this, if I preview it, you see exactly what's there, like so. So having done that, you can decide to print with this. And then you have your printouts. You save it to where you want to save it. Of course, we all know the process. I'm just going to close and cancel. So that is it for different ways you can actually plot your drawings or print your drawing. And that is where we're going to draw the curtain today. So if you have any question, please use the chat box. If you have any question, you can raise your hand or you can use the chat box. Any question, any question. Fafure John, of course. Any other person? Any other person? Any other person? None. Okay, Fafure John, you may want to type your question. Okay, I will ask you to unmute your mic so you can actually express yourself properly. Fafure John, are you on this call? You can unmute your mic and ask your question, please. It's practice. Simply practice. John Paul, okay, I'm sorry about that, John Paul. You can go over and watch the live stream afterwards. Okay, mention different ways to plot. You can plot from your model space. Yes, you can plot from your model space. Like from here, you can plot by using any of these options. Here, you can plot from this quick access tool. You can go to your application menu and use the print and then plot. You can do Control P also, keyboard shortcut. So you can do Control P keyboard shortcut to plot. Once you are okay with your setup, you just preview. And once you're done with your preview, you just plot. There are so many ways, and these are just the three I can mention for now. You can go to outputs and plots. Yes, if you have many layouts, like in my case, you can do batch plotting. Yeah, yes, batch plotting simply means that it will plot all the layers at once and make it a single document. So layout 1 will be page 1, layout 2 will be page 2. Okay, that's just what batch plotting does. It's the same process, everything the same, just that it will link all of them together and make them a single file. So that is it. The names, it's not a name, actually. It's not a name. It's a process. They are not names. They are just processes or procedures on how to plot. They are not names. It's not going to come out in your exam, so don't worry about that one. We have model space and we have layout, and the layout is also called paper space. Yes, the layout is also called paper space. Any other question, please? You're welcome. Thank you very much for attending today's class. As usual, I would like you to always practice because, yes, you and your sword become one when you practice. When you practice, your tools becomes familiar. They understand your body language and you actually can manipulate them to get whatever you want. So I always advise you, if you want to master this skill, if you want to gain mastery, please, please, and please make sure you practice. Please and please make sure you practice. About all the further questions, you can ask on Slack, and I will respond to you immediately. Just drop them on Slack now. For Fafure John, you're asking something, you can drop it on Slack and I will respond to that. In the absence of any question, I will. Okay, the taskbar right here. Let's do this. Okay, like so. Is it this one you're talking about? Or this one? I don't know what you're talking about, actually. You saw me click something and it displayed paper on the taskbar. Let's see, output. I don't really get your question. Seriously, I've clicked on so many things and I don't know where to go in this direction. Now, let me right click here. No. Nothing here. Can't really see what you're talking about. But anyway, maybe the taskbar does not have anything like paper here. Well, it's okay. Okay, no problem. Any further question, please, you can ask me on Slack while we come to the end of today's session. And I would like to, at this juncture, hand over to the host. Host, please, you can come in.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Victor. Okay, so I trust you all had a wonderful class. So like he said, if you have questions, just drop it on the channel. And if you're not done your task, please make sure to do so you can actually be promoted. Okay, so thank you guys very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, sir.